You mean to tell me Caitlin Clark's signature Nike t-shirt costs more than these damn WNBA final tickets? And I'm here to tell you, oh yeah, they do. I mean, 4-time WNBA MVP A'ja Wilson can't even get tickets up to $50. Bruh, this is bad. I mean, this is beyond bad. This just tells you the state of this damn league.
Have you ever seen a championship where the story off the court was more intense than the battle on it? Where the headline screamed failure, but the secret data told a completely different story. This is the shocking reality of the 2025 WNBA Finals. A series that was supposedly doomed, a matchup that fans rejected, and a league that was called an embarrassment right at the moment it was supposedly breaking all the records. What if everything you thought you knew about this finals was wrong? What if the real story wasn't about empty seats, but about a hidden war for the soul of the league itself? Stick around, because the truth about what really happened will change how you see the WNBA forever.
The WNBA has become the laughingstock of all sports, man, because the ticket prices are horrendous. This is a championship game.
Let's be clear from the start. The official record books will show one thing. In 2025, the Las Vegas Aces dominated the Phoenix Mercury, sweeping them in 4 straight games to win their 3rd championship in 4 seasons. It was a dynasty-making win, cemented by their superstar, A'ja Wilson, who made history by becoming the first player ever to win the MVP, Finals MVP, and Defensive Player of the Year awards all in the same season. This wasn't just a victory. It was a coronation of one of the most formidable teams and individual talents the sport has ever seen. The Aces played with machine-like precision, a testament to their experience and chemistry, making their climb to the top of the league seem almost inevitable from the season's start. But behind this story of pure athletic dominance was a different, much messier narrative. While the Aces were celebrating on the court, a parallel drama was unfolding across social media platforms.
Chart here. So the nosebleed sections is $35, bro. I mean, just to get decent seats is like $200, bro. And I'm telling you right now, for courtside seats, I ain't gonna research. I can tell you, it's probably $1,000, bro. That is crazy. This is a W.
The confetti hadn't even settled before feeds were flooded with images and videos pointing to a major, undeniable problem: vast swathes of empty seats. These clips, taken from various angles inside the arena, became the fuel for a raging online fire. Comments piled on, with critics and trolls alike calling it humiliation, a direct contradiction to the league's public messaging of unprecedented growth. The narrative quickly crystallized around one central, painful question: if the WNBA was so popular, why was its championship stage so visibly barren? This visual evidence became the dominant story for many critics, overshadowing the athletic achievement on the court. It was a PR nightmare playing out in real time, creating a powerful and undeniable narrative of a final series that, for whatever reason, failed to capture the live audience's imagination.
To mention, we got none other than Dewana Bonner, former Indiana Fever, quit the team herself in the talk and conversation of this WNBA Finals, and more importantly, her significant other, Alyssa Thomas, has found herself in some hot water as well, with not really speaking about the current state of the W. Now, everybody else is talking about it. Even A'ja Wilson looked forward to the finals, but she made it point and clear that she was going to be speaking about.
The contrast couldn't have been more stark, a dynasty being forged on hardwood, while the stands told a story of apparent apathy. This created a schism in how the finals were perceived, setting the stage for a bitter and confusing debate about the true health of the league at its most critical moment, and the evidence against the league seemed to get even more damning by the hour. The conversation, initially focused on empty seats, quickly and ruthlessly shifted to the topic of ticket prices. Rumors and reports started flying that you could get into the WNBA Finals for literal pocket change, with tickets allegedly cheaper than a combo meal at a fast food joint. Online forums and social media discussions were saturated with screenshots of ticket vendor sites showing shockingly low prices for a championship event. The picture being painted was utterly bleak and seemingly inescapable.
This is hella funny. It says the most unwatchable basketball product possible between the two teams left standing. Not to decimate it by injury, Kathy Eber really outdid it herself. Can't imagine why the world is calling for her resignation.
Here was a league that had spent the entire season bragging about its growth, its record-breaking television interest, and its soaring cultural relevance. But when it came time for its biggest event, It looked like it couldn't even give tickets away. This wasn't just a minor hiccup. It was being framed as a catastrophic failure of product and marketing. The narrative suggested a league that had overpromised and dramatically underdelivered, that the much-hyped growth was a mirage that vanished the second the spotlight was at its brightest. Critics asked if the league's strategy had backfired, or if the matchup itself was to blame for failing to generate excitement. This was a public story, the one that spread like wildfire, fueled by a constant stream of visual proof and economic data that seemed to tell a simple, sad story of decline. But was this the whole story? Was this bleak picture the complete and utter truth? Or was there a much bigger, more complicated, and ultimately more surprising picture that everyone, in their rush to judgment, was completely missing? The answer to that question was about to turn the entire controversy on its head. What happened next would absolutely shock the critics and flip the entire script on its head in a way nobody saw coming.
Controversy that led up to this game is pretty much attached to Caitlin's name. That is the Las Vegas Aces actually knocking off Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Well, Caitlin did not play, but we know the referees kind of had a hand in that, we should say, with kind of making sure the Las Vegas Aces was pushed to making it to the final.
Because while one half of the story was obsessively talking about empty arenas and cheap tickets, the other half of the story was quietly, decisively smashing every viewership record in the book. The official ratings data started to roll in from Nielsen, and it revealed a truth that was completely at odds with the prevailing narrative. Despite all the talk of no one caring, the 2025 WNBA Finals became the most watched finals in a massive 25 years. Let that sink in for a moment. Through the first 3 games, the series was averaging a staggering 1.5 million viewers, a huge 13% increase from the previous year. The opener was a monumental success, pulling in 1.9 million viewers on ESPN, with a peak of 2.5 million people tuning in at once. That made it the most watched Game 1 in nearly 3 decades. So, how do you explain this impossible contradiction? How can a final series be staring at empty seats on one hand, but be a historic, generation-defining success on television on the other? The answer to that question is where the real drama and the real truth about the modern sports landscape begins.
This is very, very bad. The face of the league, they want it to be her, and the plan really ain't planning right.
This paradox forces us to look beyond simple explanations. It suggests a massive shift in how fans consume sports. Perhaps the high cost of travel, tickets, and concessions in a city like Las Vegas made staying home the more attractive option. Maybe the league's national marketing was more effective than its local push. Or it could be that the convenience of television, especially for a series that promised and delivered high drama, simply won out. This wasn't a story of failure. It was a story of evolution, a complex tale where traditional metrics of success, like ticket sales, were being challenged by new, digital-age benchmarks. The tension of the finals wasn't just a philosophical debate about butts in seats versus eyes on screens. The on-court product itself was packed with enough raw, unfiltered drama that it gave millions of viewers at home a compelling reason to stay glued to their sets, even if they weren't in the stands.
Wait a minute. I thought WNBA players were worth millions of dollars. I thought WNBA players were claiming that they're the reason business is booming. Caitlin Clark isn't responsible for our growth. The WNBA is more than just one player.
Game 4, the potential clincher, was a perfect, heart-pounding example. The Aces, led by Wilson's majestic 31-point performance, seemed in control. But the Mercury, fueled by pride and professionalism, refused to go down without a fight. In a pivotal, series-defining moment, Phoenix's head coach, Nate Tibbetts, was explosively ejected from the game after being hit with a double technical foul for vehemently arguing a call. The incident sent shockwaves through the broadcast, with commentators dissecting the replay endlessly. He later called the ejection embarrassing and one of the weakest double technicals ever, adding fuel to the fire of controversy. The Mercury star, Kalia Copper, didn't hold back either, going so far as to tell ESPN reporters on the sideline during the game itself, "I think the refs aren't doing a good job tonight." This public criticism from a premier player in the middle of a championship-clinching game was unprecedented. This wasn't a boring, predictable sweep. It was a series filled with controversy, raw emotion, high stakes, and legitimate tension, giving millions of viewers at home exactly the kind of unscripted, human drama that keeps them watching and clicking. It proved that the product on the court was more than capable of holding audience attention, transforming the finals from a mere sporting event into a must-see television spectacle filled with storylines that extended far beyond the final score. But to understand the full, shocking picture of this final series, you have to look at what was looming over the entire season, a shadow that touched every dribble, every shot, and every headline. The current collective bargaining agreement was set to expire on October 31st, just weeks after final confetti had been swept away from the court. This wasn't just a minor contractual detail. It was a ticking clock at the heart of the entire WNBA season. The players' union and the league were reported to be far apart in early negotiations, and this tense, high-stakes standoff over the future of player pay, benefits, and the very structure of the league was a constant, unspoken storyline throughout the playoffs. This context isn't just important. It's the master key that unlocks the true meaning behind everything you saw and heard. Every single headline about poor attendance, whether it was fully accurate or not, instantly transformed into a potent bargaining chip in this multi-billion-dollar poker game. For the league office and the team owners, the images of empty seats, however contextual, were a nightmare they had to manage. In the ruthless world of business negotiations, perception is often as powerful as reality. The owners could point to those viral clips and ask a very simple, very damaging question. If our product is so incredibly valuable, if the demand is so sky high, then why can't we fill the building for our championship series? They could use this narrative to push back against demand for a larger share of league revenue, arguing that the financial foundation wasn't as strong as the players claimed. It created a situation where the public perception of the league's popularity was directly, inextricably tied to its financial future. The players, who are the undeniable heart and soul of the game, rightly deserved a bigger piece of the pie. They are the ones who dedicate their lives to the sport, who train year-round, who put their bodies on the line. But how could they walk into that negotiation room and demand a seismic shift in revenue sharing? How could they ask for salaries that reflect their true market value if the public story was that finals tickets were being sold for the price of a movie ticket? This was a high-stakes, brutal reality hiding just beneath the surface of every game. A cold war being fought in the warm glow of the arena lights. The players' case for a revolution in their pay structure was built on a foundation of undeniable, record-breaking growth. But it was growth that existed primarily in the digital and television space. They could point to the very same ratings we talked about, the historic viewership numbers that proved millions of people were watching, that the product was more popular than ever before. They could highlight the landmark $2.2 billion media rights deal that was on the horizon, a deal that would funnel unprecedented money into the league's coffers. Their argument was simple and powerful. We are driving this value. Our names, our faces, our incredible athleticism are what is selling these broadcasts and securing these partnerships. Therefore, we deserve a significant and equitable share of the prosperity we are creating. They weren't just asking for a raise. They were demanding a fundamental restructuring of the economic model, one that finally recognized them as the primary assets of the business. This included fighting for things like full-season charter flights for every team, not just as a matter of comfort, but as a critical issue of player safety, recovery, and performance. The previous CBA had made strides, but the players believed the league's explosive growth demanded a quantum leap, not just baby steps. On the other side of the table, the league and its owners were likely preaching a message of caution and sustainability. While publicly celebrating the success, their negotiating position would have been one of managing risk and long-term investment. They might have acknowledged the TV ratings, but pointed to the live gate issues as evidence that the growth wasn't universal, that the business model still had vulnerabilities. An owner's perspective is inherently different. They have massive overheads, arena costs, staffing, marketing, player development, and they invest millions up front with the hope of long-term returns. Their argument would center on reinvesting profits to grow the league even further, expanding to new cities, and marketing the product to ensure its survival for decades to come. They might have framed the players' demands as potentially dangerous, something that could cripple less profitable franchises and destabilize the league before it reached its full, mature potential. This is a classic tension in professional sports. The players, with their relatively short careers, need to maximize their earnings now, while the owners, who often view their teams as long-term legacy assets, are focused on building value for the future. This fundamental difference in timeline and perspective is what makes CBA negotiations so inherently fraught with conflict and drama. Meanwhile, the human cost of this fight was playing out in real life, in the off-seasons of the very stars we watch on TV. Consider the reigning MVP, Io Wilson. Despite being the undisputed face of a dynasty, her maximum salary under the expiring CBA was a fraction of what even a bench player in the NBA earns. This stark disparity forces a brutal reality on even the most successful WNBA players: the need to seek out higher-paying opportunities overseas during their own off-season. This isn't a choice, it's a financial necessity. It means playing basketball year-round with no true break, increasing the risk of injury and burnout. It means spending months away from family, friends, and their stateside support systems. So, when fans wonder why a player might seem fatigued or why a minor injury lingers, the answer often lies in this grueling, globe-trotting schedule. A schedule dictated by an economic system the players are desperate to change. This isn't just about luxury. It's about survival, about health, and about being able to have a full career without sacrificing their long-term well-being for a paycheck. The 2025 Finals, therefore, became more than just a battle for a trophy. It was the most powerful piece of evidence in the most important negotiation of these players' lives. Every three-pointer from Io Wilson wasn't just adding points to the board. It was adding value to their collective argument. Every defensive stop, every display of sheer greatness was a demonstration of why they were worth the investment. But conversely, every wide-angle shot of an empty seat, whether taken out of context or not, was a weapon that could be used against them. This incredible pressure cooker situation is what makes the Aces' victory all the more remarkable. They weren't just battling the Phoenix Mercury. They were battling the weight of their entire league's future. They were playing to prove their value not just as champions, but as businesswomen whose labor was fundamentally undervalued. The outcome of these secretive, high-pressure CBA talks would determine the trajectory of the WNBA for the next decade, influencing everything from free agency movement to the quality of life for the next generation of stars. So, when you watch those games, you weren't just watching a sport. You were watching a live, unscripted drama about power, money, and the fight for respect, with the entire world as the audience. So where does this all leave us? We are left staring at two completely different, seemingly irreconcilable stories of the very same 2025 WNBA Finals. One is a story of glaring failure, a narrative defined by haunting images of empty seats and the shocking crash of ticket prices, suggesting a product that the local market, in its most critical moment, seemingly rejected. The other is a story of historic, undeniable success, defined by record-shattering television audiences, a dynasty being crowned, and a league capturing the national spotlight like never before in a generation. The real, untold story, the one that gets lost in the heated online debates, is the mind-bending truth that both of these things were happening at the exact same time. The league was objectively more popular on a national scale than it had been in decades, yet was also simultaneously facing very public, very embarrassing struggles in its own backyard. It was a season of incredible, explosive growth that somehow, paradoxically, still felt fragile, as if the entire enterprise was standing on a foundation that hadn't fully settled. The Aces, beyond any shadow of doubt, proved they were a legendary team, a modern-day dynasty that will be studied and discussed for years to come. Io Wilson didn't just win. She cemented herself as an all-time great, putting together a single-season resume so dominant it may never be matched. And off the court, the WNBA secured its financial future with that colossal 11-year, $2.2 billion media deal waiting in the wings, an agreement that will pump unprecedented resources into the sport. By all traditional business metrics, the foundations for the future have never been stronger, and yet the path to get there is filled with more contradictions, more challenges, and more complex questions than anyone could have predicted. This is a simple story of rise or fall. It's the story of a league undergoing a painful, public, and necessary transformation right before our eyes. This brings us to the billion-dollar question, the core of the entire mystery. What is the real measure of a league's success in the modern era? For decades, the answer was simple and visceral. It was the electric energy of a sold-out arena, the deafening roar of a crowd, the tangible proof that people were willing to spend their time and money to be part of a live event. A packed house was the ultimate symbol of health, a direct connection between a team and its city. But we are no longer living in that world alone. We are now in the digital age, the era of the second screen, of streaming services and of global fan bases. In this new landscape, is the real measure of success the number of eyes on the screen, regardless of their location? Is it the ability to command billions in television rights, which in turn funds better players' salaries and improve production quality for everyone? The 2025 finals force us to confront this very dilemma. You could argue that a fan in Iowa who religiously watches every game on ESPN is just as valuable, if not more so, than a casual attendee in Las Vegas who bought a last-minute discount ticket. The television audience drives advertising revenue, shapes national narrative, and builds a brand on a scale no single arena ever could. This paradox reveals the intense growing pains of a sport caught between two identities. On one hand, the WNBA is a local business, relying on the passion of home cities to create a vibrant, sustainable game day atmosphere that benefits the players and the local economy. The players themselves feed off that live energy. It's an integral part of the sport. On the other hand, it is a global media product, a content generator that must compete for attention in an impossibly crowded entertainment landscape. The league hasn't yet fully figured out how to synchronize these two realities. The massive national marketing campaign successfully put the league on the map for millions, but converting that broad awareness into consistent local, ticket-buying fandom is the next great hurdle. It's the difference between being a casual viewer who enjoys the spectacle and becoming a dedicated fan who feels a tribal connection to a team. The finals exposed this gap in stark relief. The product was compelling enough to captivate the nation, but the structures that translate that into packed arenas for every game, in every market, are still being built. And let's be brutally honest about the elephant in the room, the role of narrative and star power. The regular season was dominated by one name, a phenomenon that drew in casual fans and created must-see TV whenever she played. When that singular draw was eliminated from the finals, a portion of that casual audience likely checked out regardless of the incredible basketball that was being played. This isn't a criticism of the Aces or Mercury. It's a reality of modern sports consumption. Superstars drive narratives, and narratives drive interest. The finals matchup, for all its elite talent, lacked the pre-built soap opera storyline that the media and casual fans crave. The Aces were a known, dominant force, almost too predictable. The Mercury were a formidable opponent, but without a nationally recognized, polarizing rival to create a classic hero versus villain dynamic. In a world where attention is the most valuable currency, the sheer greatness of Aya Wilson wasn't enough to create the specific kind of friction that generates universal buzz. The league's challenge is to build multiple, compelling stories and stars so that the narrative doesn't collapse when one team or one player exits the stage. This entire situation, the empty seats versus the full screens, is a microcosm of a much larger conversation happening across all professional sports. It's a conversation about value, engagement, and how we define a true fan in the 21st century. The old models are crumbling, and the new ones are still being written. The WNBA isn't an outlier. It's a pioneer on the front lines, experiencing these shifts in an accelerated, hyper-visible way. The decisions made now, from the CBA negotiations to how the league markets its teams beyond individual stars, will set the template for its future for decades to come. So now, we turn it over to you. This isn't just a question for sport executives. It's a question for every fan. What do you think is the real measure of a league success? Is the roar of a sold-out crowd the only thing that truly matters, the ultimate sign of a healthy sport? Or, in our connected world, are record television ratings and a massive digital footprint the new gold standard, proving that the game has transcended its geographic limits? Can a league be both a television juggernaut and a local attendance struggle and still be considered a resounding success? The debate is far from over, and your opinion is a crucial part of it. Let us know your take in the comments below. What matters more to you, the live experience or the broadcast convenience? And what do you think the WNBA needs to do to solve this puzzle? If you found this deep dive into the hidden story of the WNBA Finals revealing, if you appreciate content that goes beyond the hot takes and digs into the complex, messy truth, then make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We break down the stories behind the stories you think you know, and your support is what makes that possible. Thanks for watching.